The frozen wasteland of Cryathia stretched endlessly in every direction, a crystalline hell of ice and wind that could strip flesh from bone in minutes. Thorn Valdis crouched behind an outcropping of frozen stone, his breath forming clouds in the sub-zero air, despite his thermal suit. The firefight had lasted 20 minutes, maybe less, but it felt like hours. Now, silence hung over the battlefield like a shroud, broken only by the howling wind that his squad had scattered during the ambush, and Thorn had no idea how many were still alive. The Cryothians had hit them hard and fast, appearing from ice caves like ghosts. Now he was alone with one of them. She knelt in the snow 30 feet away, her weapon discarded, her hands raised in a gesture that seemed almost human. Almost. Her skin was the pale blue of glacier ice, marked with silver patterns that looked like frost climbing up her arms and neck. White hair, nearly translucent, whipped around her face in the wind. Her eyes deep violet and luminous, fixed on him with an intensity that made his finger hesitate on the trigger. "Please," she called out, her voice carrying clearly despite the wind. The translation implant in Thorn's ear rendered her words with surprising clarity. "Don't kill me, human." Thorn kept his rifle trained on her center mass. "Give me one good reason." She lowered herself further, pressing her forehead to the ice in what he recognized as a gesture of absolute submission. Her body trembled, though whether from cold, fear, or exhaustion, he couldn't tell. "I offer myself according to the old ways. I will warm your nights. I will share your fire. My life for your mercy." Thorn blinked. "What?" The alien woman raised her head slightly, those violet eyes meeting his again. "It is our tradition. Warrior to warrior. I have been defeated. My life is forfeit unless you claim me as. Your translation devices probably don't have the word. Warmth companion? Frostbreaker? That sounds like..." Thorn started, then stopped himself. His training had included cultural briefings, but nothing about this. "That sounds like something very different from what we do. I know humans don't practice the old surrenders," she said, her accent giving the words a musical quality despite their desperate context. "But I gambled that you might honor my people's ways instead of simply executing me." Thorn's grip on his weapon loosened slightly. He should call this in. Protocol was clear. Enemy combatants were to be neutralized or detained. This, whatever this was, it wasn't in any manual he'd ever read. "What's your name?" he asked, surprising himself with the question. "Nyx Sylvain, third daughter of the Frost Council, warrior of the northern reaches." She slowly pushed herself up to a kneeling position, keeping her hands visible. "And you are?" "Thorn Valdis, infantry specialist, Earth Coalition forces." He studied her more carefully now. She wore armor that looked like it had been carved from ice itself, form-fitting and elegant despite being battle-scarred. Blood-pale pink, nearly white-seeped from a wound on her shoulder. "You're injured. It will heal. If I live long enough." There was no begging in her tone now, just a calm acceptance of her fate. "I know what your people do to prisoners. The ones who survive capture don't survive long afterward. So I offer the alternative my culture provides. Let me live as your ... companion. Until this war ends or you release me. I will be useful. I know things about my people's movements, our strategies, and ... She hesitated, color rising in her cheeks, turning them a deeper blue. "And I will fulfill all the duties of a warmth companion." Thorn felt heat creep up his neck, despite the cold. "I'm not going to take advantage of. It's not taking advantage if I'm offering freely." Nyx's voice firmed. "This is my choice. Death or this. I choose life, even if that life is spent in service to my enemy." A gust of wind nearly knocked Thorn sideways. The temperature was dropping fast, and night was coming. Making any decision in these conditions was risky. Taking an enemy combatant as a, what had she called it? Warmth companion? That was beyond risky. That was insane. But leaving her here was a death sentence, and something in those violet eyes made him hesitate. She had fought fiercely during the ambush. He'd watched her take down 2 of his squadmates before he'd gotten the drop on her. This wasn't a coward begging for mercy. This was a warrior choosing survival on her own terms. "If I take you with me," Thorn said slowly, "it's as a prisoner. Not whatever you're offering. You'll be detained, questioned, and held according to military protocol." "Understood?" Something flickered across Nix's face. Disappointment? Relief? "You misunderstand the offer, but I accept your terms. At least you're letting me live." Thorn activated his communicator. "Base, this is Valdis. I have 1 enemy combatant, wounded, requesting extraction." The voice that crackled back was familiar. "Valdis? Where's the rest of your squad? Scattered or down?" "I don't know." Thorn kept his weapon trained on Nix as he spoke. "I need immediate pickup before the weather turns completely." "Copy that." Transmission locked. Transport inbound, ETA 12 minutes. "Sit tight. 12 minutes in this cold." Thorn gestured with his rifle. "On your feet, slowly." Nix rose with surprising grace considering her injury. She was tall, nearly matching his 6-foot frame, and moved with the fluid confidence of someone trained in combat from childhood. When she swayed slightly, Thorn instinctively reached out to steady her. His gloved hand catching her uninjured arm dot, the contact sent a jolt through him. Even through the insulated fabric of his glove, he could feel how cold she was, not just cold, but icy, as if her body temperature was far below human norm. Yet there was something else too, an odd tingling sensation that made him pull back quickly. Nix smiled at his reaction, a small knowing curve of her lips. Warm and cold, fire and frost. It's said that such combinations create the most powerful bonds. "You're delirious from blood loss," Thorn muttered, though his heart rate had definitely increased. "Perhaps." She swayed again, and this time when he caught her, she leaned into him slightly. "Or perhaps I see more clearly than you do, Thorn Valdis." The way she said his name, with that melodic accent, made something tighten in his chest. He told himself it was just the adrenaline crash from combat, nothing more. But when the transport finally appeared through the swirling snow, and he helped Nix aboard, their eyes met for a moment, and Thorn felt the foundation of his certainty begin to crack. He had saved her life. The question was whether he just made the biggest mistake of his military career or something else entirely. As the transport lifted off, carrying them both away from the frozen battlefield, Nix spoke quietly, her words almost lost in the engine noise. "Thank you for my life, Thorn Valdis. I will find a way to repay this debt." Thorn didn't respond, but he couldn't stop watching her reflection in the transport's window. Those violet eyes still fixed on him with an intensity that suggested this was far from over. The war between their peoples might have brought them together, but what happened next would depend on choices neither of them was prepared to make. The medical bay hummed with sterile efficiency as Mira Reeves worked on her unusual patient. In 15 years of field medicine, she'd treated everything from plasma burns to alien parasites, but she'd never had a cryothian on her table. Living cryothians were rare in human custody. Most encounters ended with bodies, not prisoners. "Her core temperature is -12 Celsius, Mira announced, checking her instruments again to be sure. That should be impossible. Thorn stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching as Mira sealed the wound on Nix's shoulder with biofoam. "Is she going to survive?" "Oh, she's perfectly healthy. For her species." Myra glanced at him with raised eyebrows. Her body chemistry is fascinating. She doesn't just tolerate the cold, she requires it. This medical bay at 20 degrees? It's like a sauna to her. As if to confirm this, Nyx's skin glistened with condensation, tiny droplets forming on her pale blue forehead. Her eyes were closed, but Thorn could tell she wasn't sleeping. Her breathing was too controlled, too aware. "Can we lower the temperature?" he asked. "I can requisition a cold cell from storage. It'll take a few hours to set up." Mira finished with the biofoam and stepped back. "There. She'd be fine, though she'd heal faster in proper cold. Your prisoner is remarkably resilient." "Thorn, she's not my prisoner," he said automatically. Both Myra and Nyx, whose eyes had opened at his words, looked at him with identical expressions of skepticism. "Right," Myra said slowly. "The enemy combatant you personally extracted and insisted on staying with during treatment isn't your responsibility." "Sure." Thorn felt his jaw tighten. "I meant she's the Coalition's prisoner, not specifically mine." Nyx sat up on the medical table with fluid grace, ignoring Mira's protest. "Actually, according to my people's customs, I am specifically yours, Thorn Valdis." She met his gaze directly. "You accepted my surrender. That creates a bond." "I didn't accept anything," Thorn insisted. "I took you into custody according to military protocol. Your words say one thing. Your actions say another." Nyx tilted her head, studying him. "You held my arm to steady me. You stayed with me during treatment. You asked if my comfort could be improved. These are not the actions of a simple captor." Myra's eyes darted between them, her expression shifting from medical concern to personal interest. "Oh, this is complicated." "It's not complicated," Thorn said firmly. "She's a prisoner. I'm a soldier. End of story. Except it's not." Nyx slid off the table, moving closer to him despite her wounded state. "Let me explain something about my culture so you understand what's happening here. On Cryathia, warmth is sacred. We live in eternal winter. Heat, fire, shared body warmth, these things mean survival. Intimacy, trust." Thorn forced himself to maintain eye contact, to not back away. "We're not on Cryathia." "No, but I am still Cryothian." She raised one hand slowly, giving him time to refuse, and placed her palm against his chest. Even through his shirt, her touch was startlingly cold. "Your people are fire to us, hot-blooded, passionate. When I offered to warm your bed, I wasn't just offering my body. I was offering a sacred bond between opposites, frost and flame. It's the deepest form of trust my people know." Myra cleared her throat. "I should probably leave you two alone." "No," Thorn said quickly. "You should stay, and she should go to holding." But he didn't move, and neither did Nyx. Her hand remained pressed against his chest, and he could feel his heartbeat accelerating under her touch. "You feel it too," Nyx said softly. "This pull between us, it's not just cultural. It's chemical. Your heat calls to my cold. My frost calls to your fire. This is why the old surrenders were created, because sometimes enemies discover they're meant to be something else entirely." "That's just biology," Thorn managed, though his voice had roughened. "Pheromones or something. Maybe." Nyx's violet eyes seemed to glow in the medical bay's harsh lighting. "Or maybe it's fate bringing balance. Ice and fire cannot exist without each other. One creates the other, defines the other." Myra had given up any pretense of not listening. She leaned against her desk, watching the exchange with undisguised fascination. "For what it's worth, Thorn, her biology is releasing some kind of chemical compound. I picked it up on the scanner. It seems to have a calming effect on human nervous systems. See?" Nyx smiled. "Even our bodies recognize the rightness of this pairing." Thorn finally stepped back, breaking the contact. His chest felt cold where her hand had been, as if she'd drawn all the warmth from that spot. This can't happen. You're an enemy combatant. I'm a coalition soldier. There are rules, regulations, entire legal frameworks that were written by people who never stood on a frozen battlefield and chose mercy over murder. Nix interrupted. Who never felt the moment when two souls recognize each other across the void of war. She held up her hands in a gesture of peace. I'm not asking you to betray your people, Thorn. I'm asking you to consider that there might be more to this than duty and protocol. What are you asking for, exactly? The question came from Mira, who had apparently decided to become an active participant in this conversation. Nix turned to face the medic. Time, space, the chance to show him that what I offer is not a trap or manipulation, but something genuine. In my culture, a warrior bond is built through shared moments, conversations, small touches, gradual understanding. I want the opportunity to build that with him. That sounds like you're asking to date him, Myra observed dryly. Is that your word for it? Then yes, I suppose I am. Nix looked back at Thorn. Though I understand this must seem strange to you. How long do humans typically know each other before they begin? Dating? Despite everything, Thorn felt a laugh escape him. Usually longer than a few hours. Then I'm ahead of schedule. Nix's smile was genuine now, lighting up her alien features in a way that made Thorn's breath catch. I've already offered you my life and my service. Most human courtships don't start with such commitment. Most human courtships don't start with combat and surrender either, Myra added, clearly enjoying herself now. Thorn ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with the situation, with Nix's impossible logic, and most of all with his own conflicted feelings. She was right about one thing: he had felt something on that battlefield, something that made him spare her when protocol demanded otherwise. Look, he said finally, even if I wanted to explore, whatever this is, it's not possible. You'll be transferred to a proper detention facility within 48 hours. They'll interrogate you, process you through the system. I won't have any say in what happens to you. Pain flickered across Nix's face. So you're saying you want to, but circumstances prevent it. I'm saying it's irrelevant what I want. It's not irrelevant to me. Nix moved closer again, and this time Thorn didn't back away. 48 hours. That's 2 days. Let me have that time with you. Let me show you what a warrior bond could be. If at the end you feel nothing, I'll go to your detention facility without protest. But if you feel even a fraction of what I feel— She let the sentence trail off, leaving the implications hanging in the air. Mira pushed off from her desk. I'm officially declaring this patient stable, but requiring observation for the next 48 hours due to her unique physiology. She'll need to remain in a specially prepared cold cell, which conveniently will take that long to properly set up and monitor. She looked directly at Thorn. Someone should probably stay with her to ensure there are no complications. Someone with combat training, in case she tries anything. Thorn stared at his friend. You're suggesting I babysit a prisoner for 2 days? I'm suggesting you guard a potentially valuable intelligence asset while she acclimates to custody. What you two talk about during that time is your business. Myra's expression softened. Thorn, I've known you for 7 years. You've never brought back a prisoner alive before. You've never asked about their comfort or insisted on staying during treatment. Whatever's happening here, it's not nothing. You deserve to figure out what it is. He wanted to argue, to insist this was all a mistake, but the words wouldn't come. Because Mira was right. Everything he'd done since finding Nix kneeling in the snow had been out of character. He'd broken protocol, made decisions based on instinct rather than training. And now he was seriously considering spending the next 2 days getting to know an enemy soldier. If I agree to this, he said slowly, Looking at Nyx, there are conditions. You answer my questions honestly. You don't try to escape or harm anyone. And you understand that after 48 hours, this ends. Whatever happens or doesn't happen between us, you still get transferred. Agreed. Nyx placed her hand over her heart in what he recognized as a formal pledge. I swear on the eternal ice of my homeworld that I will honor these conditions. Then I guess we have 2 days, Thorn said, wondering if he was making the best decision of his life or the worst. Nyx's smile could have melted glaciers. 2 days to build a bridge between our worlds, or at least between our hearts. Myra began gathering medical supplies. I'll have the cold cell ready in an hour. It's in the auxiliary wing private, secure, and off the main surveillance grid. For medical privacy, she added with a meaningful look at Thorn as Myra left to make arrangements. Thorn and Nyx stood facing each other in the suddenly quiet medical bay. The air between them felt charged, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. You're taking a risk, Nyx said softly. Your people might not understand. You took a bigger risk offering surrender to an enemy who could have killed you without hesitation. Perhaps we're both gamblers. Then, she reached out slowly, taking his hand in hers. Her skin was still impossibly cold, but Thorn found himself not wanting to pull away. I promise you won't regret this. I already regret it, Thorn said, but he squeezed her hand gently. But I need to know. I need to understand what this is. Then let me show you. Nyx stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the chill radiating from her body. See the intricate silver patterns that traced across her skin like frost on a window. In my culture, we have a saying, fire fears frost until it learns that frost makes it burn brighter. Let me make you burn brighter, Thorn Valdis. He should have said no. Should have stepped back, called for proper guards, followed every rule he'd ever learned. Instead, he raised his free hand and carefully, tentatively, brushed a strand of her white hair behind her ear. 2 days, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Then we see what happens. Nyx's smile was radiant. 2 days to change everything. And as they stood there, fire and frost, enemy and savior, Thorn couldn't shake the feeling that she was absolutely right. Everything was about to change, and there was no going back now. The war between their worlds would continue, but perhaps, just perhaps, these two warriors would find their own kind of peace.